I received a phone call one evening from the head of the railway department in Pretoria to ask me to arrange for some beds for patients that have been injured in a train crash about 100 miles down the line. It was very rainy and the rails and the roads were bad, and this train had 900 passengers, miners from Johannesburg going back to Lorenzo Marx. And they started looking for beds all over from that area up to Pretoria. And to accommodate 230 patients is not easy in the small towns, and even Pretoria Hospital. So I said to the guy who phoned, I can't give you any beds because at 5 o'clock this evening, the same evening, I'd phoned with the matron and asked for a bed for a patient, and she didn't have one, told me to come back the next day. So I said, but let me see what I can do. Having called the matron, she said, but I told you at 5 o'clock I have no beds. I said, but you've got mattresses. Yes. I said, I got access to blankets from the Red Cross Society, of which I was the chairman, and we'll create some beds. We'll put them under the existing beds. And we finished up with 26 beds that night.
Amazing.
In addition, there were lots of patients who had bad burns, and I needed cortisone injections to keep the blood pressures up and whatnot. And we didn't have enough stock. So I phoned Johannesburg and asked one of these night chemists, these 24-hour chemists, to get that parcel to the station by 12 o'clock that night, and we would get it at 6 o'clock the next morning, and we had all the equipment and whatnot.
Tell me about the nurse and the feet.
During the ward round the next morning, we heard a terrible screech from the ward next door. So both the sister and I rushed back to see what happened, and there was a nurse fainted on the floor. When she came to, we said, what happened? She pointed to her bed and she says, that man's foot. We went there, and there was the boot sticking out of the blanket, but the foot was already amputated. But the ambulance people, when they brought them, just stuck the foot back with the patient. You can imagine this young girl of 16 or 17, probably the first time she'd been in the wards, saw this and fainted with a terrible screech.
Issy, after you left and came to Johannesburg, you had many years being a doctor here. When you just look over those years, what are some of the feelings that you have of the kind of work that you were doing here?
I was basically a family practitioner. I could have made the opportunity to specialise, but I realised then you don't have the same contact with your patient as you do when you're a general practitioner. And I persevered, my practice grew, and as some of my patients have responded by letter to say how I treated them, I was part of the family. I made myself part of the family. I would sit up a whole night with a child who had diphtheria. In case they needed me as an emergency, I'd sit up all night. With deliveries of babies, if there was any risk whatsoever, I didn't go home that night. I stayed at the hospital with the patient.
So in all the years, being a married man with children, you worked long hours. What kind of hours did you work? Did you spend a lot of time away from home working in surgery?
I did, and I had to work hard to earn a living. But there, Naomi was very considerate and caring, and she kept the children going, helped them with their homework, which I should have been doing, and we got by.